I gotta say this before I talk a little bit more about the history of the jail, is the fact that the men and women that work there, we never can neglect the work they do in that jail. In some really tough times, really tough times. And my commander and I have toured throughout the country to include Fort Leavenworth. A lot of people don't understand, we actually house the military soldiers there too, with certain restrictions. So if you look at our facility that was built 40 years ago, and you're gonna hear this tonight, that's now looking at current times and current challenges, mental health, segregation within the jail, these gangs, violent offenders, and all the stuff that comes with that. You'll hear more in a minute. We need a modern jail. Ours was not built in 1985 for 2022, 23, excuse me. One thing that's unique about being a sheriff, being your elected sheriff, is the fact that constitutionally, I have to run, operate a jail. That's a mandate in Arizona. So the 15 sheriffs here, I think 9 out of 15 have jail districts to help support that. It's divine money that goes right toward the jail. It can't be used for anything else. I can't go buy JD lunch with it. I do that on my own. But Rich is going to talk more about the money in a minute. But any sheriff in the country will tell you that's got that mandate. The biggest liability to a community and a sheriff is a jail. It's a jail. So why are we here tonight? That's the jail district. And let me just say, we're not here to tell you how to vote. Or, you're all educated people, you're here, you want to be educated. I don't think you're in the standing room only. Because you look on social media and some of the things you say there, I want to jump on there so bad and say, well, that's not true. That's not true. But you're here tonight to learn the facts. This is a factual presentation on that. A couple of my jokes aren't, but the rest are. But we also want to be very transparent with you. We want you to understand who we are, and we've done our due diligence to come back and give you these facts, but also hopefully answer your questions. And if you have a question tonight that we can't answer, we're going to do our darnest to find it. We're going to do our darnest there. And we want to kill the rumors. Rumors don't serve a purpose. They don't serve a purpose. And we want to share with you the ongoing efforts of what we're doing. And as you see, a little history in the jail. It was built in 1985, early 80s, start building that. And again, talk a little bit that I'm going to go back into that. And people, and Judge can speak on this too. Our county administrator was a defense attorney. Don't tease him about that, please. Don't tease him. But truly, it's the hub of the criminal justice system. But more important than the hub of the criminal justice system, it's your quality of life. We had the opportunity last year to do a survey in Cochise County of folks around the county, all Democrats, Independents, Republicans, those that don't care. And the number one thing they came back on that poll and said was this: protect the officers that work in the jail, but also protect the inmates. Number 2 was the mental and medical assets that needed to expand in the jail. But last but not least was your quality of life. And I inquired on that, on the quality of life, but it truly means if we don't have a facility adequate to house people, what do we do with them? Well, I can tell you what they do. They walk our streets. They walk our communities. And though tough sometimes, the reality of somebody being in jail is real. People that molest kids, people that attack others, people that present that community risk, we have consequences in this jail. We're not there to punish them, but they're to safeguard them. So as you think through this tonight and you hear this stuff, think of the consequences if we don't do this. Like I said, 9 out of 15 sheriffs in Arizona have a jail district. What have we done? We did an estimate. We had experts come in. The jail commander will talk about that in a minute. We had NIJO, National Institute of Jail Operations, come in and actually look at our jail, and we said, look at it. Do we rebuild, remodel, repair? What do we do with this facility? And after about a week, I saw the people in my office meeting with the commander, and they shook their heads. They go, not good, not good, no. And so we knew where that was going, and that's why we stand in front of you today. We also had some constructional folks come in and look at the jail and say, to talk to us on a prelim, what's it going to cost? And back then, a year and a half ago, it was like $92 million. That's a lot of money, and I respect that. I really do. That's your money. That's why we're doing these open forums. So I went to Gail Griffin last year, your state representative, and said, Gail, I need your help. Commander and I went up there. We stopped the Capitol for about 3 months. We came home with $20 million that we have till 2027 to use to offset costs. That brings us down to $72 million. We went out to every elected official. We went to Senator Kelly, Senator Sinema, and said, hey, we need your help. And we were awarded $2.2 million from the federal government to offset cost. Though they make up about 44% of my water crimes, make up 40 to 44% of my inmates in the jail for last year. That's a big impact. We're over capacity, and I'll let the commander talk on that more. So we've done our due diligence in front of you today, and we'll continue doing that. People ask me, where do we put it? Well, folks, I'm a big believer that the county seat is the county seat. And we've had architects come in and look at that. We've got some prelims on that too. But we wanted to secure the funding before we get too ahead of ourselves. People ask, we don't know where it's going to be built. Well, the county seat's probably going to be the prime location. We do have some other options, and that'll come through a feasibility system. And I'll just say this to you, and I know the county administrator will look at me and say, why did you say that? But I want to make sure I'm transparent with you is, the old Bible College in Palominas, the county owns that. The county owns that, and they're going to do some upgrades on that, but the infrastructure is not there for a jail. You imagine 400 people inside a facility, you need some pretty good infrastructure, bigger size sewers. And but the reality is this, that's an option for us. It's truly an option, because what I would do is, we have a satellite jail in Sierra Vista. It's usually for processing and holding, and that's always full. And then we have one in Wilcox, based on the distance over to Wilcox and the state line, for my deputies, the troopers, and the city police officers over there. If we put it down in Palominas, talk to the police chief in Sierra Vista, talk to the Douglas police chief, we put it down there, I could close the one here, which saves liability, reduces staffing, I could relocate them into the new facility in Palominas. It's a 20-minute drive from Sierra Vista, both my deputies and the city and the troopers. So again, that comes after a feasibility study, once we realize we can secure the rest of the funding. So that kind of gives you an idea where we're going to go. And at the end of this, I'm going to come back up and answer some questions that maybe weren't covered, and then we're going to turn it over to you, because this is really your meeting. At this time, I want to introduce my jail commander. I think he's the longest serving jail commander at the sheriff's office, the longest I've been there. He spent the last 11 years, I believe, 12 years, probably from you, 12 years. He's got 37 years in the correctional field. The reason he's in position is because he's the expert of corrections. I'm not, but I understand the need. And he was a deputy warden, retired from the Department of Corrections. I was the state, and then Sheriff Deaver actually brought him over about a year before I became sheriff, and we retained his services and his expertise since. So at this time, please welcome Commander Kenny Bradshaw.
Thank you, Sheriff. So the Sheriff talked about in general the problems that we've had with the jail. We have 3 jails in Cochise County. We have the main jail in Bisbee, which currently houses, it has a bed capacity of 302. It was originally built to hold 168. In the late 90s, it was converted to double bunking, which led to the 302. Our substation here in Sierra Vista, because it's the population center of the county, holds 19. And then we have another substation in Wilcox, because it's so far away and Cochise County is so big, that holds 16. So in those substations, if they're held more than 24 hours, they're usually transported to the main jail. So keep in mind that we have 302 beds in Bisbee. In November and December, at the height of when we were just getting started with the beginning of the new smuggling law, our population was 320, 325, and our highest was 336. So that means that we had people on the floor. And that's never a good thing. At about 260, our classification process starts to break down. That means that the guy that's doing 24 hours because he had one too many martinis at the VFW and got caught on his way home has to be in the same pod with the guy that stabbed a bunch of holes in somebody, that was downtown Sierra Vista. So that's not safe for the inmates, and it's not safe for the staff. So our jail basically, 40 years old, as the sheriff said, we have a lot of infrastructure problems. When it was originally built, it wasn't built properly. They built it with the inmates in mind, as far as just housing. They didn't build it security-wise. It wasn't up to date when it was built, and they didn't think of the staff at all. I would invite you guys, if you're a member of a civic group, government organization, whatever, contact us, and we will come and we will invite you and give you a tour, and you can see for yourselves. So our officer stations are a desk thrown into a hallway. Like I said, our infrastructure is horrible. Last summer, we had to run our entire facility off of basically a big, long extension cord. If you can see it up on the screen, the very first picture, that long cable that's running next to that fence with razor wire on it, ran all the way down a half a mile from where the jail is, down towards Highway 80, to an electrical substation where it was plugged in, and that's how we ran the entire jail for a month because of the electrical failure that we had, the massive electrical failure we had in the jail. In the second picture is the main hallway in the jail. That picture shows that in 1985, when the building was constructed and conceived, there was no such thing as IP phones, IP cameras, computers, all the electronics that it takes to run the doors, everything else. So our main hallway looks like a submarine. It's got conduit and wires and everything else running through it, which is not necessarily a great security thing for the staff or the inmates, and it's easy to tamper with. The last picture shows our electrical room. So when the facility was built, and I hope nobody's around that built it because I'm going to talk bad about you and I have a pretty bad words to say about you. They put the plumbing and the water heater room right next to the electrical room. So anybody that knows Bisbee water knows that Bisbee water is really hard and full of minerals. So there was never any water softener or anything like that. So we go through water heaters like mad. We recently had to spend $140,000 for new water tanks, water heaters, and we had to put new water softeners on it. But there's constant leaks in the old plumbing and everything else. And what you see is the electrical side, where the water has run into the electrical conduit, and you wonder why we had to run off an extension cord for a month. Obviously, with the officer stations being just thrown in the hallway, which is a desk in a hallway and it's not secure, all the inmates that move within the facility, that go to medical, that go to court, that get released, that go to DOC, that go to a lawyer visit, whenever they have to come out of their living area, they walk right through where the officer is. At any one time, we have anywhere from 6 to 7 officers on duty for that 302 to 335 inmates that are there. I won't discuss a whole lot of the security issues that plagued it from the beginning, but I can tell you, and if we build a new facility, I'll come back here and we can invite everybody and I'll tell you where all the big security flaws are in that jail right now, but it's just a mess. Over the last 40 years, our inmate population has changed drastically. When I first got there 12 years ago, we had one pod for females, which didn't provide any females the same opportunity that males had. So they didn't have the opportunity for classification, which I just talked about. So those people that were just coming in to do 24 hours, especially those females that were just coming in to do 24 hours, were in the same pod with those females that were facing extra charges. So the population of females has grown and grown. Now we have a classification system, we have ways to separate them, we have a couple of different living areas that are designated for females. The problem is the more living areas we expand for a specialty population, the more we lose for someone else. We also house juveniles that are charged as adults. Here a few years ago, the county attorney and the sheriff got together and said cartels are using juveniles to smuggle drugs across the border because the federal government had no process to adjudicate juveniles. So the sheriff and the county attorney said, well, we'll charge them locally, and they charged them as adults. At one time, we had 36 juveniles that were charged as adults that were in the jail. Juveniles, when they're in jail, in an adult jail, still have to have all the same programs that a juvenile in a juvenile detention center has. So we have to abide by the school lunch program. They have to have 1 hour of large muscle mass activity a day. They have to be kept sight and sound separated from any adult. Just moving them to a visit, to court, to anything, they have to shut down the entire jail. This morning we had 7 that are still currently in jail. Some are facing smuggling charges. There's 2 that are facing homicide charges. So just those differences in population. The biggest difference in our population over the last 40 years is the issues that we have with mental health. So when the sheriff gets the 3rd call during his shift that there's a guy outside Circle K cussing everybody out and running around and screaming and yelling, he's not going to go to Circle K the 4th time. He's going to bring him to jail because we don't have another option in Cochise County. We don't have a crisis center. We don't have a mental health facility. So they bring him to jail. They get charged with disorderly, whatever the case may be, trespassing, then they go to jail. And these people are so ill that I can't put them in the general population, because in the general population, they'll either be preyed on by the general population because they're so ill, or they're so out of control that they might injure somebody in the general population. So I have to isolate them. And you or me isolated for any amount of time would start to lose it a little bit, and these folks are already very ill, so we're not doing them any good. So we try and make arrangements to get them to mental health, which is called Title 36. Title 36 is a court-ordered treatment. That means that they're so severely ill that they're a danger to themselves or they're a danger to others. When that happens, and we have to go through the courts in order to do that, we have to take them all the way to Tucson. And that's 2 officers going to Tucson or Phoenix or Apache Junction, or on some cases, we've taken them all the way to Yuma. So that's 2 officers that I have to take out of the jail to transport these folks and try to get them some kind of assistance. The biggest thing that I talked about, the most important thing that I want you guys to take away today is the staff. The staff that have been working there, we haven't had an increase in our staffing since the mid-90s. And these people are doing an incredible job keeping the streets safe, keeping these people in, keeping them from hurting each other, and keeping them from hurting the other staff. And what a new facility would do is just bring a lot of peace to them. It would make their quality of life so much better. And there's a couple of pictures there of some of our staff. Currently, we have the National Guard. That's what that one picture is, embedded with us. They don't have inmate contact. They do administrative duties and stuff like that. And that's because last year, Governor Ducey declared a state of emergency on the border. So we got the luxury of getting some National Guard to help us out and put more detention officers on the floor. But we understand that's probably going away either April or June. So let's see, we talked about staffing challenges. The next thing that we want to talk about is more in detail about mental health and medical. And ever since I've been at the jail, Megan Kennedy's been there. She's gone from a young medical tech to RN, and she's now the director of nursing, working for the health department, the director of jail medical, Megan Kennedy.
Good evening, guys. First, I just want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to come. And I'm honored to be able to talk to you today about something that I'm very passionate about. And I have been at the jail for 17 years. I say quite often that jail raised me, and they helped me get through nursing school and then kept me after. So I just want to go ahead and chat a little bit more with you about the challenges that we're facing. We currently do not have on-site medical care 24/7 at the jail, which can definitely pose some issues whenever it comes to around-the-clock medical care. And I'll get a little bit more in depth with that in a few minutes. We also don't have an on-site mental health professional to address specific restoration to treatment orders. So as far as providing providing care for the mentally ill at our jail, we've been able to increase our services that are offered to inmates concerning mental health care, and we've been able to increase the amount of individuals who are linked to care, and whenever they're released from our custody, we've increased our mental health care visits as far as the provider seeing them goes, and we've also increase the services to them. Our public health social worker recently started a book exchange program that has really taken off, and she's exchanging more than 500 books a month, and it's been a pretty wonderful thing. And whenever we face our biggest issues at the jail surrounding mental health care, it has to do with the facility itself, usually, and we don't have the proper housing locations for these individuals to be housed safely and monitored safely. And we run into the issues like Commander Bradshaw talked about, where we're having to house individuals that have that are seriously mentally ill under camera by themselves, which can sometimes exasperate their conditions, and it's not beneficial to anyone. We're lacking the proper bed space to properly monitor these individuals, and not everybody needs to be monitored 24/7 with a nurse right next to them. but we do run into situations where that does happen. So with our ADP, which is average daily population increasing, we've almost doubled over the last couple of years in our ADP. And with that increase, we're seeing an increase in all of our public health social worker visits, which is good. And we're seeing an increase in all of our linkages to care.
What is ADP again?
Average daily population of inmates, yes. And so we are able to increase these services, and we're able to increase the linkages to care where inmates are being released back into the community and being set up for success. A lot of the times whenever individuals come into the jail and they spend 30 days or 60 days or more, they don't have a job to go home to. They don't have a doctor within the community that can take over their care. So our public health social worker is working with those individuals and setting up a discharge plan for them whenever they are getting released. And they go as far as to get transportation for that individual to be transported from our jail to even Tucson, Phoenix, if they might have a program, a transition program that they're going into, or a drug addiction program that they're going into. We're able to work with them and set them up with the medications that they need for a week or so, make sure that they have the recipe for success whenever they are released from our custody. So the mental health trends in Cochise County, I'll just go ahead and continue with those ones. We have an increase of individuals who are seeing our psych provider, which we would expect with an increase in our average daily population. We have but with an increase in that, we're also having an increase in medications that are ordered, and we have to make sure that we have a formulary and a list of medications that are safe to be able to give these individuals, that aren't highly divertible, that they won't become victims because they take these medications. You don't want another inmate in the pod to, take advantage of them because they're on these medications and talk them into hoarding them so that they can take them at a later date or so that they can divert them. And we have to make sure we're working really closely with our mental health providers. Our mental health visits, as far as seeing the psych provider goes, have almost doubled as well. So addressing the ongoing medical and drug addiction needs, there's definitely been an increase of drug addiction and substance use and abuse within the communities. And whenever those individuals come into our facility who are experiencing some sort of drug addiction, a lot of the times we're working with them through their withdrawal period. And it's rough. It's gotten more rough over the last year than I've seen in the last 17 years. And a lot of that has to do with our location, being on the border, and all the drugs that are coming across the border and being so readily available. And we've definitely made some more programs as far as medication-assisted treatment goes and continuing those things. And we're making dents into it, but it takes a lot more than just that. And we're going to need a lot more help and assistance. And we will most definitely need a better facility in order to be able to provide the care that they require. When they require a long-term hospitalization, whether that be for a chronic care illness, if they have congestive heart failure, or if they have diabetes that's uncontrolled, they need to be on IV antibiotics. I don't have a nursing staff that is 24/7 that can make sure that we have them on 24/7 IV antibiotics. We also don't have the proper, even if I had 24/7 nursing care at the jail, we don't have the proper location to house those individuals in order to have an IV in their arm and get those IV antibiotics that they would require. We're also seeing an increase in those overnight hospital stays whenever we do have an increase in chronic health care conditions or substance use conditions within our facility, and we're seeing a rise in the costs for those as well. So as far as the medical needs of the incarcerated individuals in Cochise County, they have most definitely gone up. We have a provider that is at our jail. She's usually at our jail 2 to 3 days a week, and she is on site. She sees these individuals for their chronic care visits. She sees these individuals for dental and for any other medical needs that might come up whenever they are in our facility. A lot of the times whenever individuals come to us from the community and they're arrested, they come into jail and they haven't taken their blood pressure medications in months. And they come into the jail and we have to make sure that we're monitoring those and we're drawing labs and the doctors, the providers, prescribing the correct medication and we're following those. And we do chronic care visits very regularly. We draw labs. Some of these individuals come in and they haven't had their labs drawn, which they would usually have drawn every 3 to 4 months in the community. They haven't had them drawn in a year or two. And so we're getting those individuals. Some of the individuals that we have come into the jail that spend a good amount of time with us have come to us and told us we receive better care here than we ever have in the community. The other thing is whenever we have nursing staff throughout the day and they come up and they go into the pods, they're in the pods at least twice a day, and inmates have access to care at that point, and throughout the day they can make sure that they let the officers know if they need something. But if an individual has a toothache and his face is swollen, our nurse will be in that pod that morning and he can give her a medical request and say, hey, I need to see the nurse or I need to see the provider. And within 24 hours, they're seeing a provider in our jail and we're providing amazing care. I have some very competent and very caring nurses that work for me, and they do this because they love it and they definitely are rewarded, and it's a tough job. But whenever in the community, if I need a dentist appointment and I have to call and make an appointment, I can guarantee you I'm not going to get into the dentist the next day. And so getting that care started while they're in our facility is a huge deal, and it's something that they'd be lacking if they were in the community. So medical needs of our incarcerated individuals. This is related to substance abuse. And whenever I did this data gathering, this was for the month of, sorry, I can't see. This was for 2019, 2021. Wait, what do we got here? 2020, 2021, and then 2022, January 1st through the end of August. And before I came here today, I went ahead and I looked again to see if I could gather some more data and get that stuff together. And our CWA, which is a clinical, it's a clinical evaluation for withdrawal. And it's an assessment that we do for any individual who comes in that's using methamphetamine, alcohol, and whenever they come in, we know that they're going to be withdrawing. Our nurses are seeing them twice a day, monitoring them for withdrawal, and treating that withdrawal effectively and appropriately. The COWS assessment is a clinical opiate withdrawal scale, and that is if we have anybody that comes in that's using opiates and is going to be withdrawing, we're monitoring them, again, twice a day and treating them appropriately. This year, we have already seen 1,400, just above 1,400 clinical opiate withdrawal scales. And with the CWES, we have seen almost 500. So our medical facility challenges, we do not have an infirmary, which a lot of jails do. The majority of jails nowadays have an infirmary. We don't have that in our facility. Our jail was built almost 40 years ago, and when it was built, it wasn't built, medical was an afterthought. It was completely an afterthought. We didn't have a medical clinic. Our medical clinic now and our offices are what used to be the locker rooms. And so we face a lot of challenges whenever it comes to that. We face challenges just because the space is so small. We also face challenges because we don't have a way to properly monitor an individual who may be going through withdrawal, where they're housed close to medical, under camera, with medical supervision. And we don't have an infirmary which would provide all of this. We also don't have any storage space, so every bit of space that we have is used. We use under my desk, we use under other desks in each drawer, we stuff stuff full. We also barter with our all of the detention officers and the lieutenants and commanders and ask for closets here and there to store some of our stuff in. It's definitely been a challenge. And the lack of space has been the hardest part to, whenever it comes to properly medically monitoring somebody. And that's pretty much all I have right now, and I would like to introduce Judge Conalog. He has been very wonderful and taken a lot of time out of his schedule to participate in the Jail District Committee.
Good evening, and my name is Jim Conlog. I was a Superior Court judge here in Cochise County for 26 years, but I am retired. And I don't speak for or on behalf of the court. I'm also not an employee of the general Cochise County government. I don't speak on or behalf of the Cochise County government. I'm here as a citizen, just as you are. And the reason that I'm here is that the Board of Supervisors created a jail district public outreach committee in the middle of last year, and I agreed to serve on that. And then I also agreed to be the chairperson for that committee. So that is what brought me here. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the committee. And I also wanted to thank the members of the committee. We have two of them present here this evening. But it was a very diverse committee from all over the county. The committee members were Dania Acosta, Frank Antonori, David Piso, Kate Gojkovic, Tony Ison, who is here, John Kosmiter, Jennifer Lacasille, Katie Miller, Eric Peterman, who is here, John Pentek, and Paul Sheets. And our work, including agendas, reports, minutes, videos, those are available still, I believe, on the county website if you look in the agenda and minutes tab. And the county was working on this process before the committee was formed. And we had a lot of information that was presented to us. And we had a lot of folks that came in and spoke to us. We had detailed information about criminal justice and the jail system. And we were also briefed on the trends in the law, or the trends in the crime in our community and the impact of immigration on our jail system. We learned about technological challenges that our jail faces internally, cameras, equipment, communications, as well as externally with issues like video court and attorney consultations. The sheriff, jail commander, jail staff were very helpful in giving us information that we needed about the jail. And see, okay, well just remember, so if I would have remembered what were on the slides, I could have clicked to this when I was telling you numbers. These are the members, and again, we have a couple of them in the audience today. And this is we met these days, August through October of last year, and we've really received a lot of information about the jail, criminal justice system, crime and immigration challenges. You know, mental health and medical needs. Those are huge issues, and the staff at the jail is doing an amazing job with next to nothing. And the security staff and all the staff in general, they're doing an amazing job under conditions that are completely substandard. And I want to just make sure that everybody understands that. Well, so we heard the information, we went through that, and the committee unanimously recommended to the Board of Supervisors, well, number one, that we needed a new jail. And there are, inherent problems in the jail. And I don't know who I'm talking bad about, but when it was built, there were inherent problems with the jail. And now it's been in use for 40 years. And the committee, every committee member believed and felt that the situation with the jail is simply unsustainable. You can't fix it. No matter how much money you put into that, you can't fix it. It's like a really old car. You think you might be able to get another year out of it, but you might end up on the side of the road. And that's where this facility is right now. And it's a committee's belief, well, I'm going to just talk to myself. It's my belief that it would be fiscally irresponsible to just pour a bunch of money into that facility when it's so close to the end of its lifetime. And we had some real concerns for the safety of detention officers, staff, and the prisoners housed there. And it was an easy question at the end of our process that we need a new jail. And I want to talk about that a little bit in a moment. I guess it's still my slide, but the harder question, and maybe what's brought a lot of you folks out here this evening, is how are we going to pay for that? And there are a lot of different issues revolving around that. It was the recommendation, unanimous recommendation from the committee that the county form a jail district. And you've probably heard about fire districts, library districts, school districts. It's a public entity, and that's what we're asking the Board of Supervisors to create. But then, how are you going to fund that? And I know Mr. Karlotsky is going to be speaking about that in a few minutes. But this is where I am. And again, I don't speak on behalf of or anybody but myself. But you're going to build a new jail. And this will provide you with a reasonable and orderly process in order to get that accomplished. But if you choose not to, this is being recorded. I see a number of recording devices around. All the things that we had on our committee are available and they're recorded. It's my belief, and only my belief, I'm not talking on behalf of anybody else, if we don't go through this orderly process, a couple things are going to happen. Most likely, I don't know which one's more likely. A federal judge in the near future probably will order the county to build a jail. There are so many problems right now in that jail. It's mind-numbing. I mean, if you look at the stuff, it's unacceptable. And that's one route you might go to. And the federal judge is just going to tell Mr. Karlotsky and the Board of Supervisors, build it. And this is what you have to do. And report back to me every 3 months. I want to see the plans, your plans ready for me in 3 months. And then 3 months after that, we're going to go out there and be part of the people putting the shovel in the ground. Now, if for some reason that didn't happen, the car's just going to break down on the side of the road. This facility will not be usable. We got a tour of the jail. There was an offer for you to tour the jail. I'd say don't do it. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to see. You look at the folks that are housed there, the prisoners there, but you also look at the staff, it's hard. So that's what I don't know what I'm supposed to be saying, but that's what I'm here to tell you. That wasn't mine. You're going to build a new jail. And I think the Board of Supervisors, I think the citizens of this county just need to meet that head on and do the right thing. Because again, you're gonna be building this jail in the near future. So I hope I covered all the stuff that I was supposed to cover. Please, this is the time to ask questions if you have questions. And another concern is the house and sales tax. What's that going to do to you? But you also need to think about what's going to happen if you don't fund this new jail in an orderly, in a reasonable fashion. So, actually, we have a number of these town halls. This might be my last one. But feel free to ask questions. Again, thank you for coming out. And it's Mr. Carvatz is coming up.
Okay. I think there's a little hole. Rich Carwatchka, County Administrator, so I'm here to talk to you about what is on the ballot. So as retired Judge Countlock mentioned, the board established the jail district. But there's a second part of it, and that means it has to be funded. If it's not funded, then the jail district no longer exists. And this is the mechanism to fund it. It has to be on the ballot, and people have to vote for it. So, it is an all-mail ballot election. It is for a 1/2-cent sales tax, and there is a sunset clause of 25 years. Now, everyone will receive a ballot. It will come in the mail. And it simply says yes or no. Very simple, yes or no. If you agree that there should be a 1/2-cent sales tax, then you vote yes. If you don't believe there should be a 1/2-cent sales tax, you vote no. I'm trying to be clear on this because I'm having flashbacks of the conversation I had with my wife driving around town for 2 hours trying to find a restaurant. It was, do you want to go to Chili's? I don't know. What do you think? So I pull on Chili's. I'm not in the mood for Chili's. So I was like, it's just yes or no. So there is no in between, okay? So you get the ballot, circle yes or circle no, all right? Not what you think, not I don't know. It's one or the other. So extremely simple. But there are some dates that I need to inform everyone here today. First, if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. April 17th is your last day to register to vote in order to be able to vote on this jail district election. When is the election? The election day is May 16th. Now, ballots will be mailed on April 19th. And from April 19th to May 15th, the day before election day, you'll be able to mail in your ballot, or you can drop off your ballot at a mail drop box. The mail drop box, and I have to go in my mind, there's going to be one in the Sierra Vista County Service Center at Foothills, then in the Benson Service Center, the Wilcox Service Center, the Douglas Service Center, and in the Bisbee in front of the recorder's office. Those will be available and open to you Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you do it before or after those times, you won't be able to drop off your ballot. So you have until April 19th to May 15th to do so. However, on May 16th, that's election day. Ballots need to be in on that day. So you can drop off those ballots at 3 locations if you wanted to come in that day. One will be the Wilcox Service Center. The second one will be the recorder's office in Bisbee. The third will be here in Sierra Vista at the Foothills location. Also, it's a replacement center. So let's say you lose your ballot. Let's say you didn't get your ballot. Let's say the ballot was destroyed. Let's say, like my wife would do, is hide it or shred it. I'll go get another ballot. And that's the day you can go. You can actually call the recorder's office and get a replacement ballot before then, okay? However, If on that day, you're like, it's May 16th, I've been putting off a lot of things, but I need to vote, you can go to any one of those 3 locations if you don't have it, and get a replacement ballot and vote and turn it in that day. So, half-cent sales tax, some of the questions that we received was sales tax versus property tax. I'm supposed to be turning these things out. What's on the ballot? We talked about that. Temporary tax is for 25 years. I don't like reading these because then I'll just sit there and read it. You guys can read it. But it's online. Also, all this information is online in Cochise County. So if you go to the Cochise County website, you can see this. So sales tax. So that is one of the questions that people keep asking. Why sales tax? Why did we go down that route? Well, it has to be funded one of 2 ways. By statute, it's either sales tax or property tax. Sales tax, especially half-cent, brings in a revenue of about $8.5 million. We did rough calculations, and I mean rough calculations because when I looked at our numbers guys, and I call them our numbers guys, I go, I could have done this math. So what they did is they took $8.5 million and divided by the population that we have, which was 126,463. That came out to be $67.21. So that's what you would pay in addition to sales tax every year. That's if that was the number, okay? That doesn't include business-to-business transactions, out-of-county residents, cross-border shoppers. So that number probably is lower than it did. But we had to give something. People were asking, what's the number? What would it cost me out of pocket? That's roughly what the number is a year. So why half-cent sales tax? Because we want to get that revenue that's coming from out of state, out of the country, right? People coming off the border buying stuff. People stopping in this county to buy a soda on their way somewhere else. So we want to capture all that revenue. That's the best way. But the other question is, why not property tax? That's a good question. Property tax, if you're in Cochise County, I think in any county, property tax, you try to raise property tax, that's a tough thing to do. So in order to capture that same amount of revenue, that $8.5 million a year, the calculation came out, we need to do a 31% increase in property tax. I don't know if there's a slide on that. Oh, there it is. This is a bad slide, so I don't want to keep it up too long. So, property tax, 31% increase. So that's roughly for every $100,000 at your home, that'd be $83 increase per year. So, if I proposed a 31% increase in property tax, people like the sheriff would escort me out of this county and ask me never to come back. Okay. So when you look at comparisons of what we can and can't do, the sales tax was a better option, and that's what's on the ballot. So there is no, once again, there is no choice about sales tax or property tax. It's simply yes or no on a half-cent sales tax. The other thing that we've heard is maintenance of effort. So it's all coming up on tax season. Everyone does their taxes. I hope everyone does their taxes. Turns them in. And the bad word you can say about anything is being audited, right? That's everyone's worst fear. In the county, we get audited every year. Okay, the Auditor General comes down and audits all our transactions. So every year we get an audit. This third party, they're not associated with the county, they're associated with the state. They determine what our maintenance of effort is. And maintenance effort is what have we been contributing as a county for our jail year after year. So that number we calculated to be $5.4 million. The Auditor General will establish that. So it's not the county establishing that. And what the Auditor General will say is, county, you still need to contribute your $5.4 million. We don't get off scot-free. So we still have to pay what we normally paid in the past for our jail. This is on top of what we get. So $8.5 million for the half-cent sales tax, and then $5.4 million for what we have to contribute as a county. That's $13.9 million. The estimated amount of what the construction would cost is about $100 million. We don't know those final details, but we can do a rough budget of what that money would go for. $4 million year after year for 25 years would go for the construction. $2 million would go for the jail medical that you heard is much needed, right? We don't have a 24/7 jail medical, but if the jail district passes, we would. The staffing that you've heard Commander Bradshaw talk about, that extra $2 million would go towards that. And we'd have to contribute the same amount, like we said, $5.4 million a year. And then we would save a little bit in contingency for the routine maintenances over the years as the jail gets older. So that's our budget in a nutshell, okay? So the reason why I want to go and explain about maintenance of effort, because people say, oh, the county's getting off scot-free. You want that so you don't have to contribute any money. No, we still got to contribute money. And guess what? Part of that money we contribute comes from property tax. So when people say it's all sales tax, it's not. But this is going to help, if it passes, to reach that budget. And that's, I wanted to explain that, because the first thing anyone wants to do if you're going to build something or spend money is, do you have the money to spend? That's my first question. Do we need a new jail? The jail district committee said, yes, we do. Next question, can we pay for a jail? No, we don't have the revenue. So how do we do that? This is the way. So half-cent sales tax, maintenance of effort. I think I've covered the big topics, hopefully eliminated some people's questions that are coming up there. The sheriff did mention, and I just want to reiterate, there is the $20 million that the sheriff has gone and lobbied the legislature to get. Now, as he mentioned, by 2027, if we don't have our funding, that $20 million goes away. We don't have that opportunity anymore. So what he went out and fought for and was not seen ever, that opportunity might go away. The couple $1 million, you know, that you lobbied with Senator Sinema and Senator Kelly, thank you for that. A couple more $1 million to help. This doesn't mean, just want to explain, our efforts to get more money for the jail doesn't stop, okay? We're going to keep going to see what we can do to obtain more money, but this money, that $20 million and $2 million, is one-time money. What that means is, once you spend it once, it's gone. So that year after year revenue that we need is also going to be paid by the half-cent sales tax. So with that, I don't have anything else, and I'm going to introduce this young man to my left. I like the young part, I think my notes. Sheriff Jennings.
All people, okay. Let me say this too, and over the last 11 years as your sheriff, one thing my team will tell you is I push him pretty hard. I push him hard to get goals and objectives, but also relieve the financial burden on you. And over the last 11 years, we have secured over $100 million in grants, donations to offset costs here in Cochise County. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that. And that offsets us buying vehicles, personnel costs, aircraft, you name it, we've done that over time. So I'm very proud of that. And in that over 100 million, that 20 million through Gail Griffin. So we've gone and done our work, and we're going to continue to do that effort to help alleviate some of the tax dollars that you guys have to come out of your pocket with if you don't. So I've had people ask me, Sheriff, how you done that? A rural sheriff, a rural community, a rural team here large to my left, how have we done that? Part of it is I tell you, we've got a great county administrator and a good team to work with over there with Rich and his team in the county attorney's office. So we do, we go after those on your behalf, and we're gonna continue to do that. We're gonna continue to do that. So this time, I thank all the speakers, and I'm gonna open it up for questions and answers, and we'll take it from there.
All right, our first question is from Jerry. Where's Jerry?
Right here.
Come on over, Jerry.
Yeah, I've got, oh, okay. Oh, okay, thank you. I've got three kind of easy ones, but the most important one to me is, Rick, you said our only two options for funding are sales or property taxes? There's no other option?
That's correct. Under the statute, it says sales or excise tax, which is property tax.
So that's a state statute?
That is correct.
Okay. Can I ask another quick one of Megan? If we have an inmate who needs medical or mental health care, and they have to be transported to, you said Tucson or Phoenix or even Yuma, what happens to them when they go to one of those places or facilities? Are they still our inmate?
Most of the time, yes, they're still our inmate. It
You're
depends
not
on
on
their
that.
charges, of course, and it depends on where they've been charged. So a lot of that has to do with the legal process. However, 9 times out of 10, that individual is still our inmate, and we not only accrue the cost of having that individual housed at another location, or if it's at a hospital or a long-term care facility, we're accruing those costs as well, along with the transportation costs and having one of our officers or 2 of our officers present with that individual at all times. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Just one quick one for Mark. Why did you say that a jail is a liability?
And you've seen it in the paper where if somebody, if we can't provide adequate care or safeguard, that's a liability that we all endure. As a steward of your money, and as sheriff is, my job is to protect your assets. In a structure that's 40 years old, that's not up to that standard of today's care in a jail. Believe it or not, we have a lot of restrictions. That's where the challenges come, that's where liability comes. Anytime somebody dies in the jail, there's a liability that we have to look at, and everyone's investigated to see if there was any kind of liability. So again, anything that happens in the jail, I mean, yeah, it endures onto the sheriff, and really, it's you all. So I'm very cautious and guarded. I wouldn't stand in front of you guys today as your sheriff, and this is the first time I've gone to the public, and besides informative public outreach, but to say I need your help after 11 years, and whoever the sheriff is to stand here will be saying the same thing. It's time. So thank you, Sheriff.
Great, thank you.
Our next question is from Larry. Hang on, right for you.
Yes, great presentation from everybody. It gave us a more clear what to expect with this request for the new jail. And my question is, what happens if it's built, which I hope it is, what happens to the old jail place? What's going to happen to that building?
Larry, that's an excellent question. And one of the things I've suggested is, and you've heard this, we've had a lot of discussions too, is an animal control shelter. It's turned into a shelter for animals, for our domestic animals, to serve that southern part of the county. Right now, the county doesn't own one. And now my commander, on his head earlier, wants something different, so I'll turn it to
Thank you, Sheriff. One of the problems with animal control shelter is a lot of the drainage and sewage and everything else, but one of the ideas that one of our staff had was a regional evidence center. It's already climate controlled. Every law enforcement agency in the area always has problems with long-term evidence storage. So if we charge somebody, and we could use each living area, each cell for different cases, that long-term 99-year evidence that somebody has to store. We have walk-in freezers in our kitchens. We have refrigerators with blood evidence, everything else. And I think not only could we use that building for that purpose, but we can maybe even draw in some revenue for to maintain the new facility if we used it for that. But I like animals too.
Next question is from Joe.
Hey, I'm Joe Krabs. I'm a retired general contractor, so that makes me a nuts and bolts kind of guy. But as a sidebar, when you had the first picture up there, Mark, down the lower left-hand corner, that's your administration building. I was the project manager during the construction of that, so I have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on at the jail. But because I'm a nuts and bolts kind of guy, I've heard 95 million and I've heard 100 million. So I hope, I don't want to say this wrong, but I hope we're not writing a blank check. I'm hoping that we've talked to either a general contractor or an architect or a design build firm that has done this recently and knows what a jail costs, because it's not like, you know, building your house or building a little commercial office building. There's a lot of special items that's going into this, kind of like a hospital maybe. And so I want to make sure that we know exactly where did that number come from. You know, have we equated it to the population that you want to handle? Are we comfortable with that? Are the numbers Cochise County in Arizona correct? And how fresh are the numbers? To me, nuts and bolts kind of guy, dollars and cents, cost per square foot, that's what we talk about. I think we need more information on that.
I totally agree. So what we did was, in order to get this process started, we had no idea. None of us here have ever built a jail. I've been in this process or in this profession for 37 years. So we reached out to a company that was recommended to us by the experts that came and looked at the jail, which was the National Institute of Jail Operations. They recommended a company called DLR. DLR is nationally known for building jails and prisons, and they had just built within the last 10 years the facility in Santa Cruz, the jail in Santa Cruz County, and the jail in Graham County, so we knew what to compare from locally. But we just needed a round number because we had no idea what we were doing. Well, what we want to use initially, some of this 20 million from the state, 2 million from the feds, to do is do those studies. None of us are experts in what the population is going to be 20 years from now, and we don't want to put the sheriff's office and the county in the same position we're in now 20 years from now. So we want to hire experts to do those kind of studies. What's the best practices in inmate management right now? What's the best practices in mental health and medical in the correctional industry, you know, nationwide? So that's what part of those studies have to go to, because we just don't want to spend all that money as a county and then not be able to build it. So we want to make sure that we can do it, and then we want to make sure that we can do it right.
I just want to follow with that, because we did explore about getting engineered and designing of the new jail. To get it done appropriately, it would probably cost about $1 million to $1.5 million. Now, you're a nuts and bolts guy, so I need the funding first. So if I spend money, that $1.5 million, and it doesn't pass the jail district, what do you think those people that engineered and designed, when I come back to them, let's say 4 years, when I have the money, the revenue, or it passes 4 years later, they'd be like, take that, throw it in the garbage, we gotta start all over again, and now it's $3 million. So I have to be really cognizant of taxpayer dollars. And I can't go out in good conscience and pay for that detailed study at this point. It's just like I try to explain, if you're gonna purchase something, right? If you're gonna go out, buy a house, what's the first thing you need to do? How much money can I borrow, right? You don't go out and be like, I want this house. I want the $5 million house. You know, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do it, and this is not the end of the process. I want to explain that. And I talked to the sheriff about it. If the jail district passes, what's the next step? We're including everyone. We're still coming out about the studies, the engineering, and the designs, so people get informed. We just, unfortunately, can't do that at this point. But thank you for the question.
Our next question is from Colt.
Say that again.
This is who? Colt Williamson?
Court.
Court? Okay, Court. All right, what is your question, sir?
Okay, I've got a number. First on the judge, sir.
Yes, sir.
If a federal judge says you will, does the county will?
Yeah.
Okay. if they say the judge, or pardon me, if the federal judge says the jail is condemned, where do the prisoners go?
Well, I know that Sheriff Downs has made contingency plans for, if this old Model T doesn't make it another year. So I can let him speak to that, he has that, but this has happened before.
Yes,
It actually happened in Pima County, not that long ago, at least comparatively. And so I'll let Sheriff Downs talk about his contingency.
After about 2 years ago, we got the experts coming in and talking to us and said, hey, you gotta do something immediately. We actually reached out to some other sheriffs. It would cost the taxpayers $9 million a year for us to house them in a different location, to include the risk of transportation from one county back to the courts here. The risks were so high and the bill was so high. That's what my budget right now is. I think it's about $5 million, a little over $5 million for the jail. What is what's our jail budget? It's like $5 million.
5.4.
Yeah, it's over $5 million. You might as well have doubling it, $4 million plus to go out of county with our inmates. And so that's why we came back to this project here.
So the county then would have at least 14 million increase in your salary, or in your budget, or 9 million plus your pool.
And Rich, you want to answer more on that, because he's the business guy.
So it would be an increase of $9 million.
Right.
From the base 5.4, we'd have to increase it $9 million for the transportation.
But he's saying the jail district.
And that,
Oh, sorry, the jail district, sorry, I lost the question.
besides the transportation, what does that break down into property tax? Do you have any idea, 9 million,
For
just a rough guesstimate?
Right, it's close to 8 million. It's, well, the sales tax, you mean? Sales.
Well, no,
Oh,
because
property
this
tax.
is
Oh.
pre.
Yeah, so that would be a 31% increase, because the half-cent sales tax, which is 8.5 million, maybe 30% increase. The half-cent sales tax, when we did the comparator of how much would it increase property tax to get the same amount of revenue, which is 8.5 million, would be 31%.
I guess I'm not speaking properly, but if the jail was condemned
Yes.
and we had to move prisoners, what would the $9 million cost as far as property tax, I believe, for the county?
Right, well, one of two things would happen. One is that the Board of Supervisors would need to raise the property tax rate.
Right,
That's what you're talking about.
yes.
And that would be roughly 30% increase. Or we would have to cut, dramatic cuts in the county to make that offset.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
May I ask another question, please? If you set the sales tax for 25 years.
It's a sunset clause of 20 years.
We've gone 40 years with a substandard jail.
Right.
Why not look at the future and say, we will hold this for 40 years at a half a cent, knowing that the dollar is going to be worth less in 40 years than it is today, and you will have some sort of a ability to maintain and improve the facility.
Number one is my statute. It's a 25 years statute. It's by law. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can't go beyond 25 years, I don't believe. I don't think you can go beyond 25 years. It has to be renewed. I just talked to a sheriff the other day that renewed his. But it's gotta go back to the loaders. I can't do that.
Yeah, that's fine, I didn't.
But you make a good point. The average lifespan of a jail is 20 years. We've got double the use out of ours, let me say. It's been an efficient jail, let me just say that in that aspect. But after 25 years, it has to go back and run the loaders, what I was told.
Each and every one of you, excuse me, each and every one of you, I take my hat off to, because you have a mission and you have done a fantastic job of going to that mission. For you who are civilians, ma'am, a nurse has saved many lives. Judge, thank you. Administrators, we can't do it without them. I take my hat off to each and every one of you.
Thank
Here,
you, sir.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, does everybody on the list, does anybody have, we have time for one more question, so, anybody see one over here, anybody else?
Just one question.
One, okay, hang on, we'll be with you in a second, so we'll take these two, does anybody else have any questions?
Nice.
Okay, so two questions. Okay.
I guess I really have two questions. Number one is, let me stand up. Number one is, can we be assured that whatever monies are collected by the levy, those monies only be used for the jail? Can we be assured of that?
So when the Board of Supervisors established the jail district, the Board of Supervisors is actually the board for the jail district. So anything we have to spend or want to spend, we have to go to the board in a public forum where everybody can see and very transparent and say, we'd like to spend so much money from the jail district for this. We'd like to spend so much for that. And it has to be approved by that board.
Okay, thank you for that answer. One more question.
Yes, sir.
If it should happen, this may never happen, but if it should happen that the 5% tax, or the 0.5% tax generates more revenue for a given year than needed, does that mean that the $5.5 million that the county is supposed to put up is going to be reduced? And if that happens, that's not good. That means you're taking the money in effect from the tax to pay other county responsibilities.
So,
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I want to tackle your first question just a little bit more.
Okay.
And when I told you that we get audited every year, it's the Auditor General that determines how that money is used, and if we go beyond what we said that we're going to use that jail district money for, we get hit hard with penalties. So that I can rest assured, absolutely, and it's not us saying, hey, we use the funds the right way. No. The Auditor General comes down and meticulously goes through what we spend and makes sure we comply with the statute, because we put it out to the voters of what we're going to use it for. And if we do not, then we get a penalty bigger than you can imagine, okay? The second part of your question was, if the sales tax generates more revenue, and one thing I forgot to tell you, on April 17th, there's going to be a publicity pamphlet giving out more information, and it kind of details out that if there's more revenue coming in, then that will go towards paying down our debt faster, okay? Because there is an appropriate way. If there's excess funds, it doesn't limit, it doesn't decrease our portion. Our portion is set by the Auditor General, and it actually increases with inflation, so it can't be decreased based on more revenue.
So what you're saying is that the number of years might be reduced if we have positive experience in that regard?
No, the number of years would be set by the vote, but what the board can do.
Well, the vote says up to.
No, the vote.
I mean, the wording says up to 25 years.
Yeah, this is correct. It's up to 25 years, so the board would be the board of the jail district can lower the tax rate or end a tax rate actually at any point in time.
The Board of Supervisors?
The Board of Supervisors is the board for the jail district.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. 3 questions, you can answer 2 of them very quickly. So what would be the capacity of the new jail?
So for the original study, we did 410, just to see what it would look like. But as we discussed earlier, we want to do it right. And we're not experts on what the county population might be in 20 years or 10 years. So that's one of the studies that we want to make sure that we get it right. And so we'll hire some experts to do that study and determine what that's going to be before we get to that point.
2 more questions, very quick. The other question that I have is regarding employment. So obviously a bigger jail, you look at hiring more. So any idea approximately how many more you'll be hiring?
The original study for the new supervision style. There's many different kind of supervision styles in detention and corrections. There's linear, the most widely accepted and the safest right now is direct supervision, where you actually have an officer in each living area 24 hours a day with those people. That would effectively pretty much double our staff. So right now, we are in the entire detention division for all 3 locations with anywhere from 260 to 330 inmates. We are 86, including me, and the lieutenants and sergeants, corporals, and DOs. So we were looking at about 180, 170 right in there for the new facility.
Last question. Where the jail is right now, it's not populated closely by homes. Obviously, if by chance you moved into where the Bible College is, have you looked at what's going to happen to property values in that area?
No. So that's like we were saying, we absolutely want to do these studies and see. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas that even the sheriff didn't talk about that we're talking about on the advisory committee. Some people wanted it at Sybil and I-10 because of our transportation to Tucson and Phoenix. Some people wanted it in Wilcox, some people wanted it in Tombstone because it might be the geographical center of the county. But how much, if we moved it there, would we have to move all the courts? Because we transport to court like 10, 15 times a day, to the Superior Courts, to all the JPs in the county, everywhere else. We're trying to use more and more video, but there's certain hearings that you can't use video for. So those are all studies that we want to do to make sure that we put it in the right place. It's big enough to handle the capacity and the population for the next 30 years. And, we have the right amount of staffing and we're able to hire for those positions. If it's at Sybil and I-10, yeah, we might save some money on transportation to Tucson and Phoenix, but those people that I have, employees that live in Douglas, don't necessarily probably want to commute to Sybil and I-10. So those will all be part of the studies that we want to do to make sure that we get it right.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify when you said the ballot question. I'm trying to see here. It doesn't say up to. So the ballot question states, and this is what one you see on the ballot, shall the Cochise County Jail District levy an excise sales tax for a period of 25 years at a maximum rate of not to exceed 1/2 of 1%, 0.50%, or ½ cent to be used only for acquiring, constructing, operating, maintaining, and financing of county jail facilities and a county jail system. So it doesn't say up to. However, as I stated before, the jail district board would determine the length if, let's say, there was excess revenue and there would be a decrease or it. So I just wanted to be clear on that since people came on. I want to make sure that people are informed.
That's a maximum rate, right?
That is, yes.
It could be lower.
It could be lower, it cannot go higher without a vote of the public.
All right, any more questions? Oh, we've got more questions. Okay, we'll start with you.
Couple of really quick questions. Awesome meeting. Thank you for having it and answering questions. When is the next one?
Do you have
Next
another
meeting.
meeting scheduled?
The next meeting, they're up here. Yeah, Wednesday, Douglas is our next meeting. They're up here right to the left.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. And then the video from tonight, where can we find that?
It's on social media, so it's on streaming on Facebook on the sheriff's page. And where's yours?
And I will be setting up a meeting. This is on Microsoft Teams, and so I'll be putting a link on the county website on the jail district page.
And all of these will be on Facebook Live at each location.
And cool FM for Fridays.
My question is, if this is voted on for the sales tax, what happens if, say, a year from now when you get your hard numbers, is 50% more than what you're sort of ballparking? Where does that extra money come from?
I think that's a great question, and that kind of alludes to what I've said before, is you gotta know how much money you have to spend to build. And that limits what we can do. So let's say it now costs $200 million. We don't have $200 million. So what can we build for $100 million? So we at least know we have to work within those numbers. Unless
by some miracle, when you said the revenues double and increase, and there is that revenue source, sure, but that would have to be year over year to pay for a $200 million jail. But that's what we're estimating, and I think that's a good rough estimate to get the hard numbers, let's say in a year or two if it passes. But we can't go beyond that. Just like if there was that revenue source now, we would start building.
And the next question, our company last year, the construction company that builds jails, actually gave us the cost about 12 months ago, maybe 18, was about 92 million. That was their cost, and that was at the peak of the construction. So I think we got a pretty good ballpark of where it's going to be. I think Santa Cruz and Grand did that probably about 20, 30 million less, but that was the lowest cost.
I have a question. Is it a possibility to excise both sales and property tax to achieve the goal faster?
Kim, I apologize.
It's okay.
And I think before we get back to your question again, if you can ask it, but the previous question, just to clarify, we can't raise the tax rate. The max is a half cent, so we can't go further to get more revenue. And the question that you had, I'm sorry?
Is it possible to excise both sales and property tax to achieve the goal faster?
Not according to the statute. The statute, we have to do one or the other.
I apologize, I came in late, so if you've already answered these questions, you can just tell me that. I've got two issues. So my background is in systems development. Normally we come up with a list of requirements and then cost them out, and then that's decide whether you do the project. That doesn't exactly seem how this is working. And perhaps there's some reason for that. But what I'm most interested in, you just didn't pick a number out of the air. So you must have had some basic requirements for what you wanted when it comes to number of cells or services or whatever. And I just didn't see that. Now that doesn't mean you're going to get it, but you had to have something. So if we're going to spend this money, it'd be nice to know kind of what you kind of had out there as a general idea. Not that you're going to get it, because maybe the numbers won't be there, but I would think there had to be some basic requirements for this project.
And that is correct, and that's where I keep going back to. We had the construction company, DLR, for 410 beds next to the current jail. Look at our admins right next door. So, and like I said, that was about 12 months to 18 months ago. We have that report to include a preliminary design of what that looked like, to include a resource center. So yes, that was $92 million.
Okay, so you do have, and you have some idea what functionality will then support that one, because this tax is not just for building something, it's to operate it. So it's not just a bunch of cells with no bodies. You have to have some idea of what kind of services you were going to provide for that too.
Correct. That was all done.
And what were those in general?
You want to talk on that more?
Just in general, not
and that's what I'm saying, sir. We had them come in, look at our current facility. Like I said, based on 2 jails they just built, one in Coram and one in Santa Cruz County, and what they do nationwide. And they come in, looked at us, talked to us, 410 beds, built right next to the current facility, which is the county seat, and I talked about that earlier too, that it would be $92,000.
So what basic services, just the top 3 or top 5? For instance, I read somewhere that 98% of your people that are in the jail have mental issues, so there's going to be mental health issues. What are the top 3 or 5 services that's going to be provided to those inmates, or whatever you call them these days?
Yeah, and we went through all that, but I'll hit it in a nutshell real quick. I don't know where the 98% came from. That was about 67%. We did a snapshot a couple of years ago for mental health. But long story short is, the 3 priorities for our facility was officer inmate safety. Number 2, and that's going back to more staffing. Number 2 was mental and medical support, which means enhancement with their facilities. And last but not least is the quality of life, having an adequate facility that can hold 410 people in Cochise County to keep those that violate you in custody.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm for this, but I have one other question, and it has to do with the vote. And I hate to bring this up, but it seems to me with the issues, let's say, with who's going to run the elections and how that's going to go, it seems to me there's a risk that this vote won't be considered valid for some reason. And I was wondering if there was any concern about just delaying it. And I realize it could take a while because the process won't be quick. As to have a vote when we know it's going to be a vote that's not going to be fought over in the court afterwards by just waiting, say, whatever it is until the legal processes resolve themselves.
I'm going to turn over to Rich on that too, but let me just say this, and people I got a call today, and I don't know, maybe I talked to you earlier today, I don't know if you or not, but somebody called me today and asked me some questions and said, well, Sheriff, what about the elections? I said, and I'm just going to be blunt with everybody, what about it? In 2022, the way the system works for election complaints, they come to the Sheriff's office through the elections director, the reporter's office, or the citizens directly. I field 0 complaints in 2022 in Cochise County. 0. That is a state system, state law, state operated program. I have no control on, and neither does the board of supervisors. We are mandated to run the elections locally here. And I will say this, I talked to Dave Stevens a week and a half ago, my chief and I, about the upcoming, he said we're good to go. It is the system in place. I tell people if they don't like the system, which I respect that, go to the state and get the laws changed. That's how you do that. But to say let's hold the jail hostage, public safety, quality of life issue in Cochise County for something none of us in this room have any control to, include myself, county administrator, or any of us, is not the answer either. So I respect your question, I really do, but I hope you hear me back when I say that is we're good to go. I think May 16th, when we see the final results at 7 p.m. that night, by 9, whenever we see the tallies coming in, hopefully we'll have the intended result, and that is passing. So, Richard, do you want anything on that tonight? Say that one. I think so. All right, Claire.
Yeah, I just have one more question. Is there an option of, does the county has to keep that building, or can they sell that building instead of put more money into something that's dilapidated?
I'm just the landlord.
Oh,
yeah. I'm not the tenant, he's the landlord.
Yeah, not the landlord. But you're asking about the old jail.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So there's actually not a lot of uses for an old jail. So people selling it would probably not be a good option.
Okay.
I think repurposing it to maybe gain some more revenue. And I know, as Commander Bradshaw mentioned, probably an evidence room, and as Sheriff Daniels mentioned.
So that's it.
So that's a better way or a better purpose. And I know harken on that is we have our old juvenile center in Bisbee, and that has been there for a while. And that is basically a cell that is very.
So it wouldn't be worth selling to a contractor and taking that revenue and put it into.
Right, because they can't really do anything besides have a jail.
So you just may want to bulldoze it.
Yeah, but I mean, as we mentioned, I think there's other options that we can explore to maybe capture revenue to maybe pay off the debt.
Thank you.
So this is for Commander Bradshaw. Mike Calabrese. I'm a retired submarine sailor, and your facility looks worse than a submarine. But the virtual tour, I want to make a suggestion actually, is you invited people for a tour, the judge said don't go. Have you considered a virtual tour that you can put online so people can see the conditions and make an informed vote?
So we have, but we have to really consider the security issues of the jail. So if I give you a tour of the jail and I'm pointing to stuff and everything else and you're looking, I don't allow cameras in, I don't allow media into the jail, just for that purpose, so that there is no long-term video online or something that somebody can stop frame, they can look at every lock, every way that which door opens, where the security cameras are, things like that. So there's a possibility I can work with our PIOs and you know, we can edit out a lot of that and just show maybe, you know, the worse than a submarine look and whatever else we have. But thank you, yeah, we didn't even think about doing a virtual tour, so it's a possibility, but I think it's gonna be really tough to edit out a lot of the security issues that we don't wanna show, you know.
The numbers that you speak of from DLR were 92 million. How old are those numbers for the 410 units?
How old are the numbers?
Yeah, it was about a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Okay, that's concerning to me because I work in construction and the numbers, my costs went up in some places 30%, 50% in the past year. So if you're looking at a number from a year ago, it's no longer valid. I mean, I know it's gonna be important to see actual numbers. And I understand you're gonna build something smaller if you have to because you only have so much funds available. But the other question is, that number is, right now it's artificial because it doesn't support local costs. How long is it gonna take before it gets built? Because numbers you get in a month or two may not even hold water 6 months from now.
All right, do we have another question?
I don't want to sound like I'm not for the jail, because I am, but as a skeptic, if I lived in Palominas and I heard that that's where the jail was going to go, I'd freak out because I'd worry about my property value. So what kind of recourse do the residents in the area where you decide to put it, what kind of recourse do they have to say, no, we really don't want it here? I'm thinking like once it's passed, you're kind of going to put it where you want, right?
And that's part of the feasibility study. I know, and I'll just share this with you, the Bisbee mayor called me and said we want it here. People get really confused when it comes to correctional or detention facilities, and especially local ones. They're clean industry. They truly are clean industry. You look at, I don't even want to say it, but in the last 11 years, I mean, we haven't endangered the community of Bisbee, and we've kept it safe. And so, again, I don't know what the Palominas folks would think about that, if that's even going to be an idea, but the bottom line is this. The primary spot, folks, the county seats Bisbee, courts are all there, and that's probably where it's going to go. We just met with some community folks that live right next to our jail that called us, referenced people getting released from jail, walking by their homes with a big increase. So the city of Bisbee brought in, say, we're going to make a bus stop right there by the jail. Great, problem solved. So again, it's concerning because you hear jail, my mind, and I get it, I respect, but that is our primary location. Let's just face that, because it's right next to the courts.
My question, I'm sorry, is for Megan. I know that we've gotten a lot of mental health facilities moving into Cochise County, Sierra Vista. Is that helping at all with the, with the mental health at the jail?
I think that the companies or the businesses, clinics that are moving into Sierra Vista, Bisbee, Douglas, any of those areas, it helps with the individuals who are being released from custody. And that does help if we can get them linkages to care for whenever they are released from jail. But it's not helping us at the jail.
Or preventing anybody going to the jail? It's not helping there?
I don't think that there's been enough time to determine that.
Okay.
But as of now, I don't see a difference.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to wrap up.
this session, I guess, with a big thank you to you, Sheriff Daniels, and your staff, to all of the panelists, Judge, Megan, Rich. This was marvelous, very educational, needs to be done. You did it. I hope you have a better turnout at the other locations. More people should have been here. Thank you.
And as we close up on the panel, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to come out here tonight. If you have any questions that arise, feel free to reach out to my office. We will get an answer. I emailed this other day saying, Sheriff, can you send us all these answers to these questions? And we did that. Commander shot out a big email out today. That's what we're here for. We serve you, we work for you, and we take that very serious. So thank you again. Well, May 16th, hopefully we'll be joyously side. Hopefully we get this thing passed and we can move forward and grow Cochise County. Thank you all very much tonight.
Yes, sir. Oh, nice to meet you.